screen?
Yep.
All right.
Keys, I just added something about checking your spam filters to that slide, and otherwise we're good to go.
Okay, perfect.
Because check your spam filters, people.
Come on, people. Let's check mine.
Okay, so I can see, by the way, I can see the chat window and certain people, but that's all I see. So just as an FYI.
Yep. Are you good
that's
to,
normal.
Yeah. Are you good to let people in?
Okay, sure. That just means I have to stop talking fun stuff.
There's confidence.
We have a meeting tomorrow.
Yeah. That's one. Hi, everyone. I'm just gonna give it maybe 30 more seconds. But welcome and thank you for coming. Okay. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Just so you know, I can see the chat, so if you put something in chat, I will see it, and feel free to put something in chat, and if I might respond to it there, I might respond to it later. Everyone can see my screen, right? I assume. Cool. All right, and I can see some of you, by the way. So by the way, I'm working on dual monitors, so my presentation is over here, and the camera's over here, so you might see me go like this a lot, all right? All right, well, hi, everyone. Thank you for coming to my session. My name is Vanessa Rodriguez. I'm the head of Creative Studio at the University of Miami Libraries. So my presentation, how we managed on a $0 budget. Spoiler alert, we didn't. I have a few different budget scenarios that I am going to discuss, just going through our timeline and the different budget scenarios that we've had in the past. So hopefully something here resonates with you and maybe will help you advocate for your own budgets. All right, so just a little bit, like a little contents here. Like I mentioned, I'll be talking about our timeline, the history of our lab and services. I'm going to go over our heyday, so when we had a really great budget year. And then we'll talk about the budget cut, like I mentioned, is $0. And yeah, spoiler alert, we cheated. That's how we got through it. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the future unknown to us about our budget. So a little bit of the timeline. No one really knows how this lab started. I've been running it since 2013 and came on board to University of Miami Libraries in 2006. I'm actually an alum. I graduated in the year 2000. So technically the lab, as far back as I can figure out, was 1999-ish. That's when somebody was hired to help people in this little lab full of Mac computers to help people with Adobe software. That was the only service that was available back then. Was here's a computer, here's Adobe. You know, there was no Adobe Creative Campus. You just bought the Creative Suite, you know, DVDs and installed them to the computer, and then somebody could help you with it. And everything was in just like one room. I think it was like 10 computers. That's as far as I can get from the pictures. Here's a picture of the website. This is from the Internet Archive. I got it from 2008. It was called Digital Media Services back then. You can see it's all basically just software and training. In 2013, which is when I took over, there was already a large format printer and equipment loans. So there was some money coming in from the printing. It was not a free service. And all the equipment was actually not something that we bought for the lab. It was things that other areas of the library didn't no longer wanted. And so like the digitization department got new cameras. So what do we do with the old cameras? Who knows? Maybe somebody will want to borrow them. And they did. And so they all came into digital media services. Same thing with the printer. It was supposed to be for reproductions for exhibits, and then they got something else. And so let's just put it there. And we also had digitization services, which doesn't cost anything. This is an early equipment loan form from when right before the year that I took over the lab. We had 24 pieces of equipment way back then. I also have an inventory list. That's how I know it was 24. Fast forward to 2019, this is part of our heyday. We had about 106 pieces of equipment. That includes kits as one equipment. So a kit with the camera and maybe a microphone and everything else. We had different locations by then also. We were in marine science, we were in architecture, and we were about to, nope, 2019, yeah, we already had the music library location. So this is the old form. We don't use it anymore ever since COVID, but it's just to give you an example of how much we grew in that time span. And so now 2024, like I mentioned, we have lots of locations. We have the main lab, music lab, we have equipment in architecture, we have equipment in marine science, we have an XR lab, and we have a video recording studio. We have audio recording studios in the music lab. We have 3D printing now. We have a lot. We have grown a lot through the years since we started. And that costs money, right? So let's talk a little bit about the budget. This is our budget in our heyday. So let me explain a little bit. The revenue section is what we are expected to bring in. And back in the day, that was nothing. Even though we were making money off of the printer, as you can see in the actual, we were making about $22,000 off the printing service and a little bit off digitization. We had $14,000 in student worker budget. The student worker budget does not, it's not part of like the overall budget. Like, yes, that's what I have to spend on student worker budget. But if I go over or under somewhere in clerical or equipment, it's not counted as part of student worker. It's like kind of separate. So clerical, we didn't really get much or in equipment, but basically what that meant was that all the funding was coming in from the revenue of the printer. Everything extra that we made, in this case, you can see the total down here, almost $10,000. That is what I was using to buy all the new equipment, to expand to different labs, other things that I'll mention in a second, that all came from the revenue. And then, yeah, back then we still had a licenses budget line because this is before we got Adobe Creative Campus. So major expenses from the clerical supplies list is where all the ink, paper, filament, everything that we use to run the printer is coming from the clerical supplies line. Aside from that, all the marketing we do, so flyers, any brochures we had, swag that we gave away, that came from clerical. And then the exhibit, we have a semesterly exhibit, each semester, where we print out the exhibit ourselves. They're 24 by 36, we mount them. So all of that, we have an event, all that came from the clerical supplies. Then from equipment supplies, that is any replacement equipment, any new equipment, and anything broken on the printer as well. If something broke on the printer, we fixed it. It came from the equipment supplies. Other expenses. So as you can see, the little guy up there happily throwing money away. Like I mentioned, this was our heyday. So with that almost $10,000 that we would have, in the revenue, we had enough money to spend on other things. For example, events. I did not have to ask the events department for any funding if I wanted to throw an event. The money came from our own budget, from what we were making. And usually we had events for the student exhibits. We were having events also for International Games Week. We would have like, have everybody come over, we have snacks and so forth. So that all came from us. Professional development, same thing. I did not have to ask the library in general for professional development money for my staff unless it was something big like a trip. So any local conferences, no problem. A lot of my staff were doing certification in different softwares, and so we would pay for the course or the certification test. It cost like $200 depending on which it was. So my staff was getting certified in Adobe or Pro Tools. And again, I didn't have to ask anybody for it because we had it. Freight, believe it or not, if we had to have equipment fixed, that was freight. And then, yeah, the opening other labs. So all the equipment that is in our little satellite labs, it's still coming from our funding. We have to refresh it however many years, or replace it when it's broken. So we were having a very, very good time. So then came COVID, and as you can imagine, because the printer was our major budget source, nobody was really printing anymore. So if you look at 2020, this would be the 2019-2020 fiscal year. We were doing okay, and then COVID hit, everything closed down around March pretty much. So we did not hit 15,000. If you remember, we were making about 22. And then 2020, 2021, we made, I think it was like $1,200. It was pretty bad. And then we've slowly been going up. And then the 2022-2023 fiscal year, we were at about 11,500, which is still nowhere near where we were pre-COVID. But that's really important. Keep that in mind, $11,500 or so. So that year, 2022, 2023, is the first time that we actually had to make revenue. We were expected to make at least $8,800. And then we made, 11,600. So no longer were we just living off the revenue. We were expected to make a certain amount of money. And the reason for that was that, as I was told, the library has always been expected to make a certain amount of money, but it was always coming in from late fees and so forth, fines. But that number has slowly been decreasing through the years as most people have been getting things online. So that department has not been making as much money on fines and fees anymore. But the number that is expected for the library to make has never gone down. At this point, Creative Studio, my department, is the department that makes the most amount of revenue. So we started taking up, I guess, kind of like some of that revenue deficit damage, which is fine. As I explained to the accounts person, I'm like, that's fine, but I still need to make a certain amount. I need to spend a certain amount of money. So that's why if you look at clerical and equipment here, instead of it being $1,000, give or take, they gave me $8,000, and that was, to offset what I had to make in the revenue section. So as you can see, after all that, the total, we had about almost $2,000, which is considerably less if you're looking at doing any kind of professional development, any kind of events, and any kind of buying new equipment. But we had the equipment budget, so I was okay. So really the only hit was for us professional development. It was there. And then again, don't look at the student worker budget. We managed, but this number is not counting towards the total because it's just kind of completely separate. Yep. So next, 2023-2024, which is the entire basis of my presentation year, the incredibly huge library cut that kind of came out of nowhere for us. I have an estimate, about 10% was taken off of the library operational budget as a whole. And that number comes from an article that was done by the student publication, the Miami Hurricanes. They interviewed somebody in the library. And that's what they more or less said. Everyone took about a 50% hit in student worker budget cut, which was exceptionally terrible for us because after COVID, my lab went down from 2 full-time staff to 1 full-time staff. Position was frozen after the person left and they never gave it back to me. So we had to have reduced hours. And then the thing is when I had 2 people, they overlapped. So now I needed more student workers because there was no overlap and we were really busy in the afternoon. So a 50% student worker budget cut hit everybody in the library and it hit us pretty hard. And then I have no idea how much from the budget was taken out of collections. The initial threat came in at 20% of our electronic budget, but I was told that it ended up being less. I have no idea how much less. It just every once in a while you see that a database was no longer being subscribed to, and then people complain that sometimes it came back and sometimes it didn't. And the thing is that we don't have any clear idea why this happened. There's a lot of guessing and finger pointing. It came from above our dean. So I'm not gonna speculate hearsay here. We speculate amongst each other, but I don't have an answer to why. So here's my budget for last fiscal year, $0. You can see my revenue is I was expected to bring in 14,000. That was my deficit. And if you remember what I showed you previously, I had only made 11,600 the previous year. So I was expected to make even more money, even though we're still COVID. It was still not good. We weren't at pre-COVID levels. My student worker budget went down to 9,000. The good thing though is the amount of money that we have to pay for federal work study students went down. So as long as I hired federal work study students, this was okay. But it also meant that I couldn't hire any students who were not federal work study. So now I have to find students who are both federal work study and can fit our schedule and have a background in multimedia and audiovisual design, which is, not easy, but we eventually managed it. And I had no money for clerical or equipment, which was crazy. And I did complain. So here's the comparison. As I mentioned, I went from the heyday where we didn't have to make any money and everything we made was for us to having to make 14,000 and everything else was cut. There was no compensation. Yeah, very stressful. So I was kind of in a catch-22 as I was trying to explain to my supervisor, who then went to the dean, who then went to the accountants person, because I really felt like I was being set up for failure. I had to make $14,000 in revenue. Do I have the budget to buy supplies? No, but I still have to make $14,000 in revenue, which means that, step 1, I have to buy supplies to make the $14,000. I go over budget immediately because I have $0, and then I end the fiscal year in debt. So to break down the revenue of us, this is what it would normally look like. To make $14,000 in revenue alone, I would actually have to make over 20,000 because of the amount of money that I know that I have to spend on printer supplies. So pre-COVID, during our heyday, making $20,000 would not have been as stressful, but I had not even hit the 14,000 that they were expecting me to make. And then just to make matters worse, because I didn't get the budget until like somewhere in July, I thought that we were gonna be normal. So I had already spent $2,000 just on replacing broken equipment and lost equipment, because I didn't know that I had no budget. So absolute necessities, that's kind of what it boils down to. So, what was I gonna do? Well, I had to pay for paper and ink. There was no way around that. I had to pay for the 3D filament because I had to make those $14,000. There was no way around that. I had to replace pieces for equipment kits that were lost because it's silly if I cannot loan out a $1,000 camera because I'm missing a $50 SD card. There's just no way around that. You have to buy it or else the entire kit goes down. And then, like I mentioned, however many student workers I could afford. So luckily by the mid-semester, we were able to find enough student workers to cover most of the hours. It also meant though that, you know, if the main staff person was sick, the entire lab might be closed. If the student worker wasn't there, if I was teaching a class, and that's just, you know, that's just the way it is. And I told my supervisor that's the way it is, and there's really nothing else we can do about it. The sacrifices, I meant no events. We have not had any events for student exhibits. No one's asked, so no one really noticed that we weren't having any events for anything. No professional development. So unless it was approved by the library budget, certain things like the Cephalin conference, which is local, are free for library staff because we're a member of Cephalin. Emerge is free because the University of Miami is a member of Emerge. So those are things that my staff could still do, but I couldn't offer the, hey, you want to get certified in this? You know, it makes them happy. It makes us look good, you know, to have certified staff, but you know, all that, you know, was pretty much gone. No replacement equipment. If the camera was broken, we're not buying a new camera. We were only replacing parts of kits. I only had one exhibit instead of two because the exhibit costs money. The poster boards to mount the exhibit on cost, it's about $300 for the pack, plus, you know, the paper, plus the ink that I'm spending on the paper. So we only did one exhibit. No additional purchases for marketing. All our flyers were printed on just the regular copy paper that the library has. Once we ran out of the button swag that we used to make, we did not buy any new buttons to hand out. No equipment refresh, which I hadn't been able to do a equipment refresh for a long time because of the low numbers on COVID. We were running on GoPro 4, which is really embarrassing because everybody's on GoPro 11 or 12. And like I mentioned, yeah, we could only hire federal student workers. So here's how we ended up. Like I mentioned, I had already spent $2,000 on equipment. And then I spent about 900 more trying to, like, you know, odds and ends. Clerical, like I said, it's impossible. You have to buy the supplies. But I couldn't believe this. We made $21,000 off the printer. So I passed the $14,000 that I needed to make, but I did not make enough to cover everything that we needed equipment wise, really. So if it was just clerical, you can look at the balance, 7,700. If it was just clerical, we would have managed it. But you have to buy the equipment stuff, and that was where we were getting the money from. So I ended technically in the red for $2,500. Now, this is a breakdown revenue of what we did. You can see on the left, the profit now is 50% because you can see how little I was spending on equipment. I only spent about 11% on equipment, where normally it would have been 35%. So how did we manage on a $0 budget? We cheated. That's what I'm going to call it. There was a long lost account that I was given mid-fall semester. I'm already panicking, but mid-fall semester, it turns out there was this account that it's a long story. I knew it existed, but no one said, okay, use this account. You can use this account. I didn't know the account number. But basically, it was a one-time funded account that the language was very specific. It had to be used for kind of a makerspace thing, which means at this point in time, nobody in the library can use this account except for my department. So that's what we were using. That is how we got by. So this is what happens at the end. We were not actually in the red. Nothing to see here. We started in the middle of the fall semester just buying everything off that one-time account that is still not depleted. And then at the end of the year, like I mentioned, we cheated and we got lucky because we made more than the $14,000. So if you take away the amount of money that we had to spend from the account and we put it, again, we're getting it from that secret account, technically I had $7,700 in the positive. Some of that money was still needed for the library because it was a really kind of, you know, bad year. But I did get permission from the accounts person to go shopping. I made a list of the equipment that needed to be refreshed. Absolutely, we were running, it was embarrassing to be loaning out GoPro 4, 5, and 6. And so once I came up with the list, the accounts person told me I could spend $5,000. So I spent $5,000 refreshing the GoPros, going from Quest 1 and the Quest Go, which was defunct. I bought the Meta Quest 3. We bought new Zoom cameras for music that had 4K, and we bought this Vixia 4K Canon as well to replace the old one. So everything was a refresh. I didn't buy anything new. I still have a broken camera downstairs that I have to send out to Canon to see if they can fix it. But yeah, at this point, this was really like what we needed to do was that refresh. So what does the future look like? So before I got the budget for this year, I was told another lean year, which was kind of concerning. I'm like, is it leaner? Is it as lean? Is it less lean? It's the same. It's exactly the same. Luckily for me, I do not have to make anything more than the 14,000. They didn't look at, oh, you made 20,000 last year. Let's see you make 25. No, it's still the 14. I still have the same amount of budget in student workers, which again, because I don't have to pay, we don't have to pay as much in federal work study as we used to. It's fine as long as we only hire federal work study. I don't have any money in clerical and I don't have any money in equipment, but that is because I was told last semester, no, what we want to do is deplete that one-time fund. So that little treasure trove should last me, I don't know, about 4 or 5 years if I'm really good about it and I don't go crazy. There is a lot more oversight in what I'm spending and so forth, but mostly I'm given the green light. I don't ask for anything crazy. I'm like, let's get a $50,000, 3D scanner. No, that I would never have done that in the first place. So we're just gonna be spending that. We're on what I call semi-survival mode. I'm buying everything I need, and then in March or April, I'll make another list of like, these are the things that we need to refresh. These are the things that we may want. And then, tell our accountants person, like, okay, how much can we spend extra from that account? And then I don't know what's going to happen in the future. Currently, the University of Miami has an interim president and an interim provost. So we really don't know what's going to happen. This is what I spent currently. This is from June. I spent almost $1,000 just buying replacement parts for everything. And since I took this image, I have spent 1,000 more on the ink and paper. And I should also mention that last fiscal year, I didn't even spend as much on ink as I would have because I believe it was the medical library decided to switch from Epson to Canon printers. And so they gave us an entire set of Epson ink, which if you know, is like $1,200 or more, depending on the size. So that saved us some money right there. So we are currently still in semi-survival mode, buying ink, I'm buying filament, I'm buying replacement pieces, however many federal work study students I can afford. No professional development unless it's coming from the library. I might do 2 exhibits. The event funding is coming from the events team. I do have to ask them. We've cut corners by going to our local grocery store and just buying like those baked good boxes that are pretty cheap instead of having to go through any kind of events catering at the University of Miami. So that's helped out a bit. No additional purchases for marketing. We're just going to keep pumping out flyers from the regular printer. And then maybe we'll have an equipment refresh. Anyway, I don't really have a lot of room to add more equipment. So, I mean, I guess that works out fine. The future, like I've mentioned, I don't know what the future will hold. Eventually, we will run out of the treasure funding, and hopefully, we will get the funding back into our account after that happens. I'm catastrophizing a little bit when I talk to my supervisor about this, and the accounts person, because I mentioned if we run out of the treasure trove and we don't get additional funding, what's going to happen is I can't make the revenue because I can't buy the supplies for the printer. I can't buy the equipment replacement. I can't replace any equipment or any pieces. And eventually, if you don't have the money, you're just going to end up in a lab with nothing but computers and a person there that can help you with the software, which is where we started. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just kind of like we built so much that, yeah, hopefully we'll get all that sorted out. But yeah, as I mentioned, that's the reality of the situation. You can't run a lab with our kind of services without funding. The money has to come from somewhere. So that's the way it is. But hey, on the bright side, we're in this together. This is library cuts across all the library. It's not anything personal against us or our value, but it means that we all kind of like understand each other and we cut each other a lot of slack and try to help each other out where we can in the various departments. So that is it for me. Thank you very much. Let me see if I do have one question in chat. Any other questions in the chat? Yeah, let me know. Could you get revenue from supplies sold for 3D printers? Yeah, no, we printing is $2 an hour at our lab. So we charge for all the printing. The students do have free printing at the engineering school and in architecture, but they're very research focused. So if anybody wants to do fun stuff, that's when they come to us. And also a lot of times, if it's the end of the school, if it's into the semester, the students might have taken too long to put in their print orders, and then they're not going to get it in time for their classes if they're in engineering architecture, and that's when they need to come to us too. So 3D printing doesn't give us a lot of revenue. Most of our revenue is the large format printer. There's a lot of poster printing for research. And I mean, I'm going to say the large format printer is about 90% of our revenue. Other questions? Maybe we tried doing filament by the gram, and that just seemed to confuse everybody. So we switched to the hourly, and that seemed everybody seemed happy with that. The other thing I would say is I was told like, oh, well, why don't you raise prices? And it's like, technically I'm already, if I'm making that much revenue, it's because I'm already charging more than what it actually costs to you know, to buy the supplies. So I did not want to raise prices. I haven't raised prices in like 6 or 7 years. So. Any other questions? I hope I wasn't too negative. We're trying, we're getting by. Nick is here, he knows, he's in music, he's my guy in music. Has there been any conversation about the idea that maybe there are services that would be unsustainable without, yeah, well, you know,
I mean, that's sort of
honestly,
it.
I mean, I've told them like this, and the thing is, that's pretty accurate because of the large student worker budget cut. It meant that the library was not going to be able to do 24/7 during finals, which is something that the students, once they realized that, is I think when they realized, oh my God, the library budget, what happened? There was a big ruckus. There was an article about it. That's where the 20% cut, sorry, the 10% cut estimate comes from. There was a petition where the students said, hey, the library can't even afford to go 24/7, but the football coach is getting $80 million. So that looked really bad. And the library was given the funding to pay for overtime for the staff. So we were able to do 24/7. Ouch, yeah. Like based on headache, we didn't talk about working with office of given to bring in a big donor fund. Yeah, I mean, technically that's what we're running off of right now, is that big initial, it wasn't really a donation, it was money that was set aside to create a different kind of makerspace that never happened. So actually we're talking right now to maybe have a corporate funding for our exhibition, or you know, the student exhibition that would take care of probably about $1,500 a year, because that's pretty much how much it costs to do the exhibit twice with the events and everything. So yeah, a little bit here and there would help. So that's what we're working on right now, is trying to get corporate funding for that student exhibit. Seems like a good sell. Emily, you
That
raised your hand.
makerspace fund, have you had any conversations with them about like whether or not it could become an endowed situation where you're just spending the interest and the interest is given to you every year?
I don't know. This is the funny thing, and I mean, I'll
Mhm.
tell you between us more, because it's a long story. Basically, the account was hidden for a few years. Nobody knew it was there.
And that's how you can, that's actually the way that you end up with these interest funds, but it depends on how much you
Yeah.
put in first and like, so that
It's
would
not
be,
unheard of. The interest is how we do the Adobe Scholars, the Adobe money that we got in, that we received as a gift for having Adobe Creative Campus, is what pays for these scholars. We have 2 scholars every year, and it's paid for basically by the interest off of that.
yeah, we have one student worker that's, well, each unit has one student worker that's paid for off of an endowment that somebody bequeathed to us, and it's been cool, but you know.
Right, so staffing, okay, so I'm in my office. Nick runs music, the music creative studio. There's a full-time staff in the creative studio main lab. We're in between staff right now. We're hiring a new person. They start in August. I have one person, William, who's in the XR lab, and then the student workers. Yeah. That's it. It used to be, like I said, it was 2 people in the main lab, and we were open 10 to 10. But because we lost the other position, we're just open 10 to 6 Monday through Friday. Yeah, we were open 10 to 10, and we were open on Sundays before. So, services already went down because the things in the lab, you can use the computers, but you can't get help, and you can't pick up equipment. You can't pick up your posters or your 3D prints. You can only get those things between 10 and 6 Monday through Friday. So the services already went down a bit. $1 for a long time. Yeah, see, $1 per hour is easy to calculate by staff. We did too. Yeah, no, it's not as bad. It's one person in each lab, and then I'm covering where I can if needed. Like right now, I'm the person in the main lab because we're waiting for the new person to start. Which is, means I'm a little bit not focused. I also teach a full-time semester course, I teach a 1 semester course in the School of Communication. So even if I wanted to be here, I can't be all the time because I'm doing a full course. So okay. I wish I had better news. All right. Yeah, any other questions? Feel free to email me. But thank you for coming. And I'll see you maybe in the next one, because I'm doing another presentation next.